topic of the discussion is whether we need regulation of private schools. No, actually, the primary proposition why we had this discussion is we had a bill in 2007 regulating private schools. So the private schools regulation was primarily into the functioning of the private schools, like relating to the financial manners in which the fees has been levied, the way in which salaries were distributed, etc. So the major concern in when this bill was being debated in the parliament was to what extent it scuttles the autonomy of private schools. Because after the onslaught of private schools, like over the last 10 years, there has been a significant change in the education sector, because there has been a lot of demand, but unfortunately the government has not been able to cater to the demand by creating more government schools or creating an education system to cater to the needs of the huge demand. So that is the primary reason why there is a need for private school or privatization of education, which are one of the major areas in higher education sector. But at the same time, there was stiff opposition for privatization of education system, like the heavy fees, and which led to the concept of elitism in the education system. Like the poor students were completely ignored in the education system by the private schools because of the fact that they don't have the money to pay them. And this led to a creation or a division of a schooling pattern where private schools started increasing and which catered to the urban or the middle class of the people. So this led to a lot of opposition and criticism, and few people started voicing concerns about the need to control or regulate such private schools. That was a primary reason why this bill was being tabled in the parliament. But again, because a lot of opposition actually happened and the bill was not passed into the parliament. But again, now coming back to the recent trend of after this Right to Education Act was being passed. So this is a landmark legislation without doubt, because it again, right to education, the very concept of right to education was being primarily focused through this legislation by giving importance to education as such, right? The need for educating the people, educating the youth of the country, especially the deprived or the disadvantaged youth. So only through such kind of legislation can the government or the state be able to include this disadvantaged section of the people. Because education is something very important which we can't totally ignore. Because unless and until we have a good education system which caters to the rural mass, then only we can provide a social inclusion platform as such. So now coming to the major questions which we need to address in the discussion is one thing, like whether we need to regulate private schools. Because at one end we need more schools to cater to the demands of the society, and there is a strong belief that private schools have more quality education or value-based education compared to the government schools, which has a lot of issues regarding infrastructure and maybe even the way in which the education is being imparted. So at the same time, there is again a totally flip side to it, where the profiteering actually happens at the cost of the parents or the cost of the people who are paying the fees for the students, because there is no regulatory mechanism for controlling the fee structure. There is no mechanism to control the functioning of the private schools as such, other than the syllabus pattern as such. And if you, at this point, the good example would be Kerala. Maybe since Kerala is considered to be a model in education system, Kerala has more private schools compared to any other states in the country, and these private schools have been performing very well. Maybe even we can't say it totally outclasses the government schools, but private schools have been very competent and has been able to produce the best students